Mike Bloomberg came into the 2020 race a little late, but he's already making headlines for his shifting views. A recent article published in The City highlights the billionaire's support for sick leave laws, something that he threatened to veto multiple times as the mayor of New York City.
Right. And now a New York City probe says Bloomberg's company was in violation of those laws. All right, so for more on this, we have the reporter for The City, Reuven Blau, joining us now to talk about his piece. Good to see you.
Hey, Reuven.
Thanks for having me.
So, all right, to our viewers who are not in New York City, what are the New York City sick laws, and what is Bloomberg's company accused of violating?
So the sick laws are really specific. They say that any company that has 5 or more employees has to offer 5 paid sick days for those staffers. There's a couple other technicalities in the law that say that they have to list publicly the rules that they are allowed to use, and they also have to allow people to take those sick days without having to kind of give a doctor's note right off the bat.
And so what's the Bloomberg's company accused of doing?
So 2 years ago, a whistleblower in the company sent a written complaint to the city's Department of Consumer Affairs and alleged that this employee said they were not allowed to take 3 days in a row without having to give a doctor's note, meaning that right away after the first day they had to give a doctor's note. And the law allows you to give those 3 days, largely because someone can have the flu or a cold and not go to a doctor and not need a doctor.
Right.
So when he was the mayor, what was his point of view on this sick leave?
So he was against the bill for a long time.
Big time.
Like
he vetoed it, right?
He actually vetoed it. The history goes back about 10 years, where about in 2010, there was labor activists and groups really pushing for this legislation to go through. And at the time, Kristen Quinn was the city council speaker, and she actually totally shelved it. It came up again in 2013 when the mayor was going for a 3rd term, and the issue again came up, largely because the economy had kind of changed, so people were also sort of saying, hey, that's not an excuse again. And he vetoed it, and he said that the concerns were that it would put New York City at an unfair disadvantage to other cities, and it would also possibly create issues with companies who would say, hey, look, I have to do this, I have to give you paid sick, but I'll cut staff or cut other benefits.
So what has been the rationale for his evolving, let's call it that, evolving view?
So we should talk about what he's been saying now.
Right.
What are some of the things he's been proposing in regards to sick leave for the entire country?
Yeah, it's a good question. He recently wrote an op-ed for MarketWatch saying, hey, look, I think this is a great idea now, and I think we should do this on a national level. And when you question his staff, the reaction is, well, yeah, the big question was, his big opposition was, he thought that if New York City enacted this legislation, it would create an unfair disadvantage for businesses in New York City. But on a national level, that issue goes away. Critics of the mayor would say, hey, look, the law's been in place for several years here. You haven't said a word about it previously. And, clearly some of your concerns, one of the other concerns he raised was enforcement would be an issue. Clearly that doesn't seem to be a problem. Yeah. And the economy's booming, and this law is in place for several years already. And also, on a local level, Governor Cuomo recently just announced that he wants to enact similar legislation for the state.
Well, when he talks about enforcement possibly being an issue, was he talking about his own company?
So he says that, look, or at least spoke, through his PR people. They say, look, my company's great. We actually offer 20 days of leave time a year. And they actually, when this came up, they fought the city kind of tooth and nail, saying, look, we actually do follow the rules, and the kind of a technical back and forth, the city asked them, hey, let me see your policy, and they were kind of unable to produce that. And they actually went and said, hey, look, well, okay, fine, we'll agree to pay this. It was a $1,000 fine, but we don't want to sign an official consent decree because we don't want to make this public. And the city kind of came back and said, hey, look, you violated the rules. You got to play by the rules, and this is going to be public as well.
So what are some of the other presidential, or where are they, the other presidential candidates when it comes to sick leave?
So on the Democratic side, by and large, this is something they all support. Different people have different sort of ideas and plans, and different people have kind of spoken out more about it than others. Elizabeth Warren has said 12 weeks, and it's kind of a combination of paid sick leave and family time. Andrew Yang has kind of a real comprehensive plan on his website for smaller companies, for larger companies, and even contractors. Joe Biden has kind of not talked about this directly on his website, but it's much more kind of spoken openly about the need to help the middle class workers.
Really interesting. Reuven Blau, thank you so much for being with us. Really good reporting.
Thanks for having me.
All right.